body posture prior to initiating and making contact with the helmet. I'm not sure what establishing a linear body posture means, really. He didn't hit him with the crown of his helmet. He hit him with the front of his helmet. He was coming in. There was some straight line between his back, his neck, and his helmet. And he did contact Williams in a violent way, which brings us to number 2. Did you have an unobstructed path to your opponent? The answer is yes on that one, surely. And number 3, was contact clearly avoidable and player delivering the blow had other options? I think the answer to that is also yes, because Williams was, again, effectively already tackled. Most people think checked all 3 boxes and should have been ejected. And I think it's fair to say he did check all of those boxes. For whatever linear body posture means, he did check all 3 of those boxes. But he wasn't ejected. Meanwhile, quarterbacks get tackled around the neck. Not even hit on the helmet, but tackled around the neck at times. And you're getting yellow flags for roughing the passer. And the inconsistency, I think, is what really begins to infuriate people. Inconsistency is one of those things that can send anybody mad. Think about it with your children. I know with mine, if I'm inconsistent in my discipline, if I'm inconsistent in my punishment, if at times I punish things and other times I look it over, it establishes, first of all, a horrible standard. They don't behave. And why should they? Because they don't know what is or is not against the rules. It's not just children, pets. You know, dogs are pack animals. They like a leader, and they like a leader to establish disciplines and clear rules, and they flourish and thrive in that environment of clear rules. Employees, society itself flourishes in an environment where there are consistent, clear rules. Think about when we get the most upset, when we feel like something is being done inconsistently, maybe for racial reasons, or other forms of bigotry reasons. Or maybe when we're canceling people for one reason but not canceling other people for the exact same reason. Inconsistency drives us nuts. And then that brings us to pass interference. Last night there were a couple of instances where pass interference was not called, and the coaches attempted to get pass interference called. You know, I think at one point, Doug Peterson, Philadelphia Eagles head coach, was just taking a flyer. He's like, I don't know what pass interference is. Do you guys know what pass interference is? I'm going to throw this red flag and see if that's pass interference. On that particular play, I think it was by the letter of the law, by frame analysis. Alshon Jeffrey's left hand was smacked out of the path of catching the ball, and the ball flew right by. But upon further review, it wasn't pass interference. Why? What's the consistency? What is pass interference? It's infuriating. And yet, I don't think the refs are doing that bad a job. I actually think they're doing a decent job of getting it right because their default mechanism is set to the right place. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean coming up on The Will Cain Show.
This is The Will Cain Show.
He's got great hair.
Amazing hair. And seems to be immune to whatever contaminants are making Max Kellerman gray.
I think that's because whenever Will shakes your hand, he sucks the life force out of you.
Don't worry. More coming up.
Think about this. Would you rather have players on the field or ejected from the stadium? Would you rather have play continue, maybe with the human element, or slow it all down and break it up into frame-by-frame elements? I think NFL officials are actually getting it right. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. The NFL referees are once again falling under scrutiny after last night's Thursday Night Football game. This time because, A, Derek Barnett was not ejected from the game after what looked like an egregious hit on Green Bay Packers' Jamal Williams. He checked all the boxes, the 3 rules for when a player should be ejected. Did he lower his helmet? Did he have other options? Did he take a clear path to the player? Check, check, check. Derek Barnett checked all the boxes to be ejected from the stadium, and yet he was not. Meanwhile, defensive ends are getting flagged every time you turn around for breathing on the quarterback. That inconsistency infuriates us as fans. At the same time, we have no idea exactly what pass interference is. Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, said after the game, I don't know. I have no idea. I can't tell what it is. You know, the famous definition of obscenity from the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, was we can't define it. We just know it when we see it. When is porn over the line? When has it gone to the realm of unprotected speech? When is it obscene? I don't know. I just know it when I see it. We don't even know pass interference when we see it. Can't define it, can't see it, don't know it when we do see it. There were several calls, one for the Packers and one for the Eagles, that looked like pass interference and drew coaches' challenge. Some of them looked like just testers, just flyers. Doug Peterson, he doesn't know if it's pass interference either. Well, let's find out. Throws the red flag. A little bit like a dog, you know, with a invisible fence and a shock collar. Doesn't really know exactly where the limits of the yard is, but might as well test it out a few times, even if you got to take a few lumps, even if you got to get a few shocks, even if you got to get a few challenges wrong. So Doug Peterson throws what looks to be clear defensive pass interference, throws a challenge on what looks to be clear defensive pass interference. And once again, the referees come back and say, it's not pass interference. And I think the refs are getting these things right. Here's what I mean. I want their default mechanism to be to keep players on the field and to defer to the call on the field. What I don't want football to become, and what I hope we don't allow it to become, in the wake of the Rams-Saints NFC Championship game, is slowing the entire thing down to the instant replay, slow motion, frame-by-frame analysis that we all play in our living rooms. I don't want some eye-in-the-sky, omnipotent, godlike referee to look at everything that's challenged or that's in the final 2 minutes of a game, slow it down from every angle, and absolutely try his best to start from scratch and get it perfect. I don't want that. It's not that I hate perfection. It's that I don't think it's worth it. It's a messy game full of violence and human elements. And let the referees make the calls. Defer to the call on the field. And when you go to a challenge or when you go to review, it has to be overwhelming, egregious, play-altering violations. When you slowed that down in that game last night, Kevin King's hand hits Alshon Jeffries, his left hand, before the ball arrives. You can see it in slow motion. You can see it frame by frame, but you couldn't see it to the eye. It was a bang-bang play. And we just can't take bang-bang plays and turn them into this game where everything gets overanalyzed. And I don't want players ejected if it's at all a close call. I understand that Derek Barnett checked all the boxes, but I don't think he intended to hurt Jamal Williams. I don't think that was what he was trying to do. I don't think he was a bad actor. And I think we want to keep players on the field, not kicked off. I just want my default settings for my referees to actually be where they were last night. Less penalties, less ejections, more deference to what's gone on in the field. That, I think, is a more entertaining game. A little bit earlier in the show, I went off on the Des Moines Register because in the wake of trying to cancel a philanthropist, they canceled their reporter. And while that's poetic justice, they didn't learn the lesson. The lesson isn't more cancel culture, it's less. And I had a debate with Jonathan Vilma about whether or not Dak Prescott is an average quarterback right now without Ezekiel Elliott. You can go check out both of those segments on demand in the Will Cain podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. What's in your wallet?
All right, that's it. Now let's go. Yeah.
When the game is on the line and the clock is winding down,
We're going to get this thing started.
it's time to run.
The 2-minute drill. It's
All right, two big questions going into this weekend's full slate of football. Take it away, Doug Brown.
And Will, this first game is a game you're probably going to have a little interest in. The last game of the day on Sunday, Saints hosting the Cowboys. Who has a bigger night in this one, Ezekiel Elliott or Alvin Kamara?
Everybody, there's no right answer for me here, right? I get this wrong any way I go. I think that Alvin Kamara has the bigger night. Here's why. I think the Saints' entire defense is probably going to be resting upon the advice of guys like Jonathan Vilma. First order of business, stop Ezekiel Elliott. And the Saints have a good defense, and they've done a good job in the past of stopping the run. I think the Saints can devote their resources to doing so, to trying to stop Ezekiel Elliott. The problem for the Saints is that's going to open them up, wide open, to what I think is now one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL in Dak Prescott to carve them apart. Meanwhile, the Saints will be relying on Alvin Kamara through a variety of measures. Passing game, running game. He's fast, he's explosive, he's electric, he's good, and he will be the Saints' offense. I think Alvin Kamara will be in the zone this weekend. And In the Zone is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. What's next, Doug?
So what you're saying is you won't be unhappy if you're wrong about that one.
I won't be unhappy if I'm wrong, but I'm okay if Dak carries them to victory, too.
All right, also on Sunday, will the Colts host the Raiders? How about this? Who would you rather build a team around, Derek Carr or Jacoby Brissett?
I'll tell you what, Doug, I'm going to take Jacoby Brissett. Here's my rationale. I know what Derek Carr is. I think the body of evidence is in on Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is an average quarterback, probably trending to slightly below average. That means he's a 15 to 20th ranked quarterback in the NFL. I think there's a chance that Jacoby Brissett ends up pretty good. He's got some nice victories on his slate. He had a nice game against the Los Angeles Chargers. Quietly, the Colts have moved on from Andrew Luck and found some decent success with Jacoby Brissett. And what we don't know about Jacoby Brissett could still be upside. I don't think there's a ton of unexplored upside with Derek Carr. I think he's okay. And that's it. And there's a chance Jacoby Brissett is more. There's your 2-minute drill. There's what's coming up this weekend in the NFL. And coming up on this show, my picks for the best games this weekend. Plus, there is, as we speak right now, an athlete embarking on yet another professional sports career, too, in the vein of Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson. Not exactly, but pretty big time. Will he make it? I'll tell you next on The Will Cain Show. Tony Romo, CBS NFL analyst, he's playing in the Safeway Open, PGA tournament, right now. And he is in the midst of his second round. Right now, as we speak, Tony Romo is 1 over for the day and 1 under for the tournament. He's currently playing ahead of guys like Fred Couples, John Daly, and Phil Mickelson. And I believe right now, Tony Romo is above the cut line. He might just make it to Saturday play. And in which case, if he does make the cut, CBS and Tony Romo have arranged for him to miss his broadcast this weekend. He's supposed to be doing Vikings-Bears on Sunday afternoon with Jim Nantz. And Boomer Esiason will fill in for him if Tony Romo makes the cut. This is a fascinating accomplishment. I mean, I'm no big golfer, but I've heard enough golfers talk about being a great weekend warrior is nothing comparable to doing it at a professional tournament. That's great. You shoot under par with all your buddies on the weekends. Maybe even beat the club pro. Do it in front of a crowd. Do it from the tee box that the pros do. Do it with the pressure on. Do it with no little gimmies or mess-ups. Do it under these rules. And Tony Romo's doing it. Bob Wischusen, who's filled in for me from time to time and fills in for Stephen A. Smith as well on ESPN Radio, he just tweeted this not long ago. He said, if Tony Romo makes the cut, it may not quite be Deion or Bo playing two sports, but it's not far off. For a part-time amateur whose fame puts him in the spotlight, with people waiting and wanting him to fail, and he competes eye to eye with tour pros, unreal. I hope he does it. It is pretty amazing that Romo, who they've always said is a good golfer. I remember even back in his playing days, they always said, Romo might have been able to play golf if he dedicated his time to golf. They've always said he's a good golfer, but this is different. This isn't a pro-am. This is a PGA tournament, and Tony Romo right now looks like he's going to make the cut. You guys back in the studio in Bristol, let me know if there's any update there and how it goes. All right, let's get ready for our weekend's football with my 5 biggest picks of the week. The Will Cain Show's Weekend Preview is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The top 5.
This radio talk is terrible.
In the 5.
All right, these are the 5 bets that I'm interested in this weekend that I'm going to play some money on. These are the ones I feel most confident about. I think the Cleveland Browns are due for a prove it moment, a comeback moment. I think that